Have you ever felt different from everyone else? Like you were meant for something bigger, but you couldn't quite put your finger on it? Well, you might be what some people call a chosen one. Now, that might sound pretty cool at first. I mean, who wouldn't want to be special, right? But here's the thing. Being a chosen one isn't all it's cracked up to be. In fact, it can be really hard sometimes, and there are a lot of reasons for that. Reasons that nobody really talks about. Today, we're going to dive into 9 of these reasons. We're going to look at why being a chosen one can be tough, even when it seems like it should be awesome. And trust me, this isn't just some made-up stuff. These are real challenges that people face when they find themselves on a special spiritual path. Now, you might be thinking, why should I care about this? I'm not even sure if I'm a chosen one. Well, that's exactly why you should keep watching. See, lots of people feel like they might be different or special in some way, but they're not sure what it means. They might be dealing with some of these challenges without even realizing it. And even if you don't think you're a chosen one yourself, chances are you know someone who might be. Understanding what they're going through can help you be a better friend or family member to them. Plus, let's be real. We're all curious about this stuff, right? We all want to know what it's like to be special, to have a bigger purpose. But it's important to see the whole picture, not just the shiny, exciting parts. That's what we're going to do in this video. So, what exactly are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to look at 9 big reasons why being a chosen one can be really hard. We'll talk about feeling different from everyone else and how lonely that can be. We'll look at the pressure of having a big responsibility on your shoulders. We'll even talk about how it can mess with your everyday life, making simple things complicated. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. For each challenge, we'll also talk about ways to deal with it. Because here's the thing, being a chosen one might be tough, but it can also be really amazing. It's all about understanding what you're dealing with and learning how to handle it. By the time we're done, you'll have a much better idea of what it's really like to be on a special spiritual path. You'll understand the challenges, but you'll also see the incredible opportunities. And who knows, maybe you'll realize that you're more chosen than you thought. Let's start with one of the biggest challenges that chosen ones face: feeling different from everyone else. Now, this might not sound so bad at first. I mean, being unique is good, right? But imagine feeling like you're from a different planet every single day. That's what it can be like for chosen ones. See, chosen ones often feel like they just don't fit in with the people around them. It's like everyone else got a guidebook for life, but you got a completely different one. You might find yourself thinking differently, feeling things more deeply, or being interested in stuff that other people think is weird. For example, you might be really into spiritual topics or big life questions, while your friends just want to talk about the latest TikTok trends. Or maybe you feel emotions super strongly, not just your own, but other people's too. It's like you're picking up on things that no one else seems to notice. This feeling of being different can start when you're really young. Maybe you were that kid who always asked the weird questions in class, or the one who preferred sitting alone and thinking instead of playing with the other kids. As you get older, this feeling doesn't go away. It can actually get stronger. The trouble is, feeling different can make it really hard to connect with other people. You might feel like nobody really gets you, like you're speaking a different language, even when you're using the same words as everyone else. This can lead to some pretty lonely times. You might find yourself holding back in conversations, not sharing your real thoughts because you're worried people will think you're strange. Or you might try to fit in by pretending to be interested in the same things as everyone else. But deep down, you know you're not being true to yourself. This loneliness can be really tough to deal with. It's not just about not having people to hang out with. It's about feeling like there's no one who truly understands you, no one you can really be yourself around. And that can hurt a lot. But here's the good news. You're not alone in feeling alone. There are lots of other chosen ones out there who feel the same way. The trick is finding them. It might take some time, but there are people out there who will get you, who will appreciate your unique way of looking at the world. One way to find these people is to look for groups or communities that share your interests. This could be online forums about spirituality, local meditation groups, or workshops on topics that fascinate you. When you're around people who are into the same things as you'll you're more likely to find those who think and feel like you do. Another thing that can help is learning to appreciate your uniqueness. Yes, feeling different can be hard, but it's also what makes you special. Your unique perspective, your deep thoughts, your strong feelings, these are all gifts. They're part of what makes you a chosen one. Remember, some of the most amazing people in history were those who didn't quite fit in. They were the ones who thought differently, who saw things others didn't. Your differences aren't something to be ashamed of. They're something to celebrate. Now, let's talk about another big challenge that chosen ones face: dealing with some seriously big responsibilities. When you're a chosen one, you often feel like you have a special purpose or mission in life. And while that might sound exciting, it can also feel like carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. See, chosen ones often feel like they're meant to make a big difference in the world. It's not just about living a good life for yourself. It's about doing something important, something that will help lots of people or even change the world. That's a pretty big deal, right? Imagine feeling like you're supposed to solve big problems like climate change, or bring about world peace, or help humanity evolve spiritually. That's the kind of thing chosen ones often feel called to do. And while it's amazing to have such a big purpose, it can also be really overwhelming. You might find yourself constantly thinking about your mission, trying to figure out what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it. You might feel guilty when you're not actively working towards your goal, like you're letting the world down somehow. This pressure can show up in all sorts of ways. Maybe you push yourself really hard, always trying to learn more, do more, be more. Or maybe you get stuck, feeling paralyzed because the task ahead seems so huge. You might even start to doubt yourself, wondering if you're really up to the challenge. One of the toughest parts of dealing with this big responsibility is trying to balance it with everyday life. After all, you still have to do normal stuff like go to school or work, take care of your home, and spend time with family and friends. But when you feel like you have this huge mission, those everyday tasks can start to feel unimportant. You might find yourself getting impatient with normal life. You might feel like you should be doing something more important than sitting in class or going to work. This can make it hard to focus on the here and now because your mind is always on your bigger purpose. And let's not forget about the pressure this puts on your relationships. When you're always focused on your big mission, it can be hard to connect with people who don't share that same sense of purpose. You might find yourself feeling frustrated with friends or family who seem content with ordinary lives. So how do you deal with all this pressure? Well, one important thing to remember is that you don't have to do everything all at once. Your mission, whatever it is probably going to take time. It's a journey, not a sprint. Try breaking your big purpose down into smaller, manageable steps. Instead of thinking, I need to bring about world peace, think, today, I'm going to learn more about conflict resolution. Small actions add up over time, and they're a lot less overwhelming. It's also important to remember that taking care of yourself is part of your mission too. You can't help the world if you're burnt out or stressed all the time. Make sure you're taking time to rest, to do things you enjoy, and to connect with people you care about. These things aren't distractions from your purpose. They're what give you the strength to pursue it. And here's a big one. Try to be patient with yourself. You're dealing with some really big stuff, and it's okay if you don't have it all figured out yet. Remember, even the biggest changes in the world started with small steps. You don't have to change everything overnight. Now, let's dive into another huge challenge that chosen ones often face: dealing with self-doubt. This might seem strange at first. I mean, if you're chosen, shouldn't you feel super confident all the time? But the truth is, chosen ones often struggle with some pretty intense self-doubt. Here's what it often looks like. You have these big feelings, these deep thoughts, this sense that you're meant for something important. But then this little voice in your head starts asking questions. Are you sure you're really special? What if you're just making all this up? What if you're not good enough to do what you think you're meant to do? This self-doubt can hit you in all sorts of ways. Maybe you have a powerful spiritual experience, and it feels amazing and real in the moment. But then later, you start to wonder if it really happened, or if you just imagined it. Or maybe you get an idea for how you could help people, but then you talk yourself out of it because you're afraid you're not smart enough or skilled enough to pull it off. A lot of chosen ones deal with something called imposter syndrome. This is when you feel like you're just pretending to be special or gifted, and you're afraid that sooner or later, everyone's going to figure out that you're a fake. This can be really tough to deal with. You might find yourself constantly second-guessing your thoughts and feelings. You might hesitate to share your ideas or experiences with others because you're afraid they'll think you're crazy or lying. You might even start to pull back from your spiritual path altogether, thinking that you're not cut out for it after all. Another thing that can feed this self-doubt is comparing yourself to others. You might look at other spiritual teachers or leaders and think, wow, they have it all together. They know exactly what they're doing. I'm nothing like that. But here's the thing. Everyone has doubts sometimes, even those people who seem super confident. And just because your journey looks different from someone else's doesn't mean it's any less valid or important. So how do you deal with all this self-doubt? Well, first of all, it's important to recognize that having doubts doesn't mean you're not really chosen or special. In fact, questioning yourself can be a good thing. It means you're thinking critically, that you're not just blindly accepting everything. The key is not to let those doubts paralyze you. One thing that can help is to keep a journal of your experiences and insights. Write down the times when you felt really connected to your purpose, when you had a powerful experience, or when you were able to help someone. Then, when the doubts creep in, you can look back at these moments and remind yourself that your feelings and experiences are real. It's also super important to be kind to yourself. Talk to yourself like you would talk to a good friend. If your friend was doubting themselves, you wouldn't tell them they're a fake or not good enough, right? You'd encourage them and remind them of their strengths. Try to do the same for yourself. Remember, being chosen doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean having all the answers or never making mistakes. It means being on a journey, learning, and growing all the time. Your doubts and questions are part of that journey. They're not signs that you're failing. They're opportunities to dig deeper, to understand yourself better, and to grow stronger in your purpose. And here's a big truth. Sometimes, the people who doubt themselves the most are the ones who are actually the most genuine. They're the ones who are always striving to be better, to understand more, to do more. So if you're dealing with self-doubt, try to see it not as a weakness, but as a sign that you're taking your path seriously. Let's talk about another big challenge that chosen ones often face: dealing with skeptics. When you're on a special spiritual path, you're bound to run into people who just don't get it. And that can be really tough to handle. Imagine this. You've just had an amazing spiritual experience. Maybe you've received a powerful message, or you've had a vision that's changed the way you see the world. You're excited, you're inspired, and you want to share it with someone. But when you do, they look at you like you've grown a second head. They might laugh or roll their eyes or tell you that you're being silly or delusional. This is something that happens to chosen ones all the time. The things you experience, the insights you have, they often don't fit into the normal way of seeing the world. And for a lot of people, anything that doesn't fit their view of reality is automatically dismissed as impossible or crazy. You might find yourself dealing with skepticism from all sorts of people in your life. Friends might think you're going through a phase, or that you've joined some kind of cult. Family members might worry that you're losing touch with reality. Coworkers might start treating you differently if they find out about your spiritual beliefs. Dealing with skeptics can be really frustrating. It's not just that they don't believe you. It's that they often don't even try to understand. They might dismiss your experiences without even listening to you properly. Or they might try to explain away your experiences with logical explanations that totally miss the point. This can leave you feeling misunderstood and isolated. You might start to feel like you can't talk about a huge part of your life with the people around you. And that can be really lonely. Even worse, constant skepticism from others can start to feed into your own self-doubt. You might start to question your own experiences, wondering if maybe the skeptics are right. This can really shake your confidence and make you hesitate to follow your spiritual path. So how do you deal with all this skepticism? Well, first of all, it's important to remember that you don't owe anyone an explanation. Your spiritual experiences and beliefs are personal. You don't have to justify them to anyone if you don't want to. That said, if you do want to share your experiences, there are ways to do it that might help skeptics be more open to listening. One approach is to focus on how your spiritual path has positively affected your life. rather than trying to convince them of the reality of your experiences. For example, instead of trying to prove that your vision was real, you could talk about how it's helped you become a calmer, happier person. It can also help to find common ground. Even if someone doesn't believe in spiritual stuff, they might be able to relate to the feelings of peace, love, or insight that you've experienced. Focus on these universal aspects when you're talking about your path. Remember, too, that actions often speak louder than words. Living your truth, being kind and compassionate, and making positive changes in your life can sometimes do more to convince skeptics than any argument could. And finally, it's super important to find people who do understand and support you. Look for spiritual communities, online or in person, where you can freely share your experiences without fear of judgment. Having this support can give you the strength to deal with skeptics in other parts of your life. Now, let's dive into another big challenge that chosen ones often face: trying to balance their spiritual life with the everyday, mundane world. This is like trying to live in two different realities at the same time. And let me tell you, it's not always easy. Here's what it often looks like. On one hand, you've got your spiritual life. This might involve deep meditations, profound insights, powerful visions, or a strong sense of connection to something greater than yourself. It's exciting, it's meaningful, and it feels really important. But on the other hand, you've still got to deal with the everyday world. You've got to go to work or school, pay your bills, do your laundry, and all that normal stuff. And sometimes, these two worlds can feel like they're totally at odds with each other. You might find yourself sitting in a boring meeting at work, your mind wandering to the incredible spiritual experience you had last night. Or you might be trying to meditate, but all you can think about is your growing to-do list. It can feel like you're constantly being pulled in two different directions. One of the toughest parts of this balancing act is trying to integrate your spiritual insights into your everyday life. It's one thing to feel all peaceful and connected during meditation, but how do you hold on to that feeling when you're stuck in traffic or dealing with a difficult coworker? You might also struggle with feeling like your everyday life is less important or meaningful compared to your spiritual experiences. This can make it hard to stay motivated at work or to engage fully in normal activities. You might find yourself thinking, what's the point of all this mundane stuff when there's so much more to life? And let's not forget about the challenge of explaining your life to others. How do you talk about your job or your hobbies with your spiritual friends? How do you talk about your spiritual path with your coworkers? It can feel like you're constantly switching between two different versions of yourself. So how do you balance these two worlds? Well, one key idea is to start seeing them not as separate, but as two parts of the same whole. Your spiritual life isn't separate from your everyday life. It's meant to enhance and enrich it. Try to find ways to bring your spiritual practices into your daily routine. This could be as simple as taking a few deep breaths before starting work, or saying a quick prayer of gratitude before meals. These little moments of connection can help bridge the gap between the spiritual and the mundane. It can also help to look for the spiritual lessons in your everyday experiences. Maybe that difficult coworker is teaching you about patience and compassion. Maybe the challenge of managing your finances is an opportunity to practice non-attachment. When you start looking, you might be surprised at how many spiritual lessons are hiding in your normal life. Another important thing is to create routines that honor both aspects of your life. Maybe you start your day with meditation, then move into your work tasks. Or maybe you set aside certain days for more intense spiritual practice, while focusing on worldly responsibilities on other days. The key is to find a rhythm that works for you. Remember, too, that your everyday life is what gives you the foundation to pursue your spiritual path. Taking care of your physical needs, maintaining relationships, and engaging with the world around you. These aren't distractions from your spiritual life. They're an important part of it. And finally, try to see your ability to live in both worlds as a strength, not a weakness. As a chosen one, you have the unique ability to bridge the spiritual and the mundane. You can bring spiritual insights into the everyday world, and you can ground spiritual concepts in practical reality. That's a pretty amazing gift. Now, let's talk about something that's both exciting and challenging for chosen ones: dealing with intense spiritual experiences. These are the moments that can totally change your life, but they can also be pretty overwhelming to handle. So, what do we mean by intense spiritual experiences? Well, it could be a lot of things. Maybe you have a vision that feels more real than everyday life. Or you might suddenly understand some deep truth about the universe. You might feel an overwhelming sense of love and connection to everything around you. Or you could have an out-of-body experience that rocks your understanding of reality. These experiences can be absolutely amazing. They can fill you with joy, peace, and a sense of purpose. They can show you things about yourself and the world that you never knew before. And they can give you a direct experience of the spiritual realities that most people only read about. But here's the thing. These experiences can also be really intense and sometimes even scary. They might challenge everything you thought you knew about the world. They might come with physical sensations that you don't understand. And they can be so powerful that they're hard to process or integrate into your normal life. One of the biggest challenges with these intense experiences is simply making sense of them. Our normal, everyday minds aren't always equipped to understand these kinds of experiences. You might struggle to put what happened into words, or to explain it in a way that makes sense to others, or even to yourself. Another tough part is dealing with the aftermath of these experiences. Sometimes, after having a really intense spiritual experience, the normal world can seem dull or even fake in comparison. You might find it hard to care about everyday things or to connect with people who haven't had similar experiences. There's also the challenge of integration. How do you take the insights or changes from these intense experiences and actually apply them to your life? It's one thing to have a moment of cosmic understanding, but it's another thing entirely to figure out how that understanding should change how you live day to day. And let's not forget about the fear factor. Sometimes these experiences can be scary, especially if you don't understand what's happening. You might worry that you're losing your mind or that something is wrong with you. This fear can make it hard to fully open yourself up to these experiences, even when part of you knows they're important. So, how do you handle these intense spiritual experiences? Well, first of all, it's important to remember that having these experiences doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. They're a natural part of the spiritual journey for many people, especially chosen ones. One helpful approach is to learn as much as you can about different types of spiritual experiences. Read books, talk to spiritual teachers, or join groups for people who've had similar experiences. The more you understand about what's possible and normal on the spiritual path, the less scary these experiences will be when they happen. It's also super important to take care of yourself after intense experiences. Give yourself time to process what happened. Journal about it, meditate on it, or create art inspired by it. And make sure you're taking care of your physical needs too. Eat well, get enough sleep, and stay grounded in your body. Finding a balance between openness and boundaries can be really helpful. While it's good to be open to these experiences, it's also okay to set boundaries if things get too intense. You might develop a practice of grounding yourself, or learn techniques for controlling the flow of energy during intense experiences. And remember, you don't have to go through this alone. Finding a spiritual mentor or joining a community of like-minded people can be incredibly helpful. They can offer guidance, share their own experiences, and provide support when things get overwhelming. Finally, try to approach these experiences with an attitude of curiosity and gratitude, rather than fear or judgment. Each intense experience is an opportunity to learn and grow. Even if they're scary or confusing in the moment, they're helping you expand your understanding of yourself and the world around you. Let's dive into another big challenge that chosen ones often face: how being on a spiritual path can affect your relationships. This is a big one, because our connections with others are such an important part of life. But when you're a chosen one, these connections can get complicated. Here's what often happens. As you start to change and grow on your spiritual journey, you might find that your relationships start to change too. Some of these changes can be really positive. You might become more compassionate, more understanding, more present with the people in your life. But there can also be some tough challenges. For one thing, you might start to feel like you can't relate to some of your old friends anymore. The things they care about might start to seem less important to you. Or you might find it hard to talk about the things that are really important to you now because they just don't get it. On the flip side, you might also start to attract new people into your life who are more aligned with your spiritual path. This can be really exciting, but it can also create tension with your old friends or family members who might feel left out or threatened by these new connections. One of the biggest relationship challenges for chosen ones is figuring out how to be authentic without pushing people away. You want to be true to yourself and your spiritual path, but you also don't want to alienate the people you care about. This can lead to some tricky situations. Maybe you don't want to participate in certain activities anymore because they don't align with your values, but you don't want to seem judgmental. Or maybe you want to share your spiritual experiences, but you're afraid of being misunderstood or ridiculed. You might also find that your changing perspective affects your romantic relationships. If your partner isn't on a similar spiritual path, it can create a sense of distance or misunderstanding between you. So how do you navigate these relationship challenges? Well, one important thing is to practice patience and compassion, both with others and with yourself. Remember that everyone is on their own journey, and it's okay if not everyone understands or agrees with your path. Communication is key. Try to find ways to share your experiences and beliefs in ways that others can relate to. Focus on the practical effects of your spiritual path, how it's helping you become a better person, for example, rather than trying to convince others of specific spiritual concepts. It's also important to maintain boundaries. You don't have to share everything with everyone. It's okay to keep some aspects of your spiritual life private, especially with people who might not understand. At the same time, try to stay open to connection. Look for common ground with others, even if they're not on the same spiritual path. And remember that diversity in your relationships can be a good thing. It can help you stay grounded and connected to different aspects of life. Lastly, be open to the idea that your relationships will evolve over time. Some may grow stronger, others may fade away, and new ones will form. Trust that the right people will come into your life at the right time to support your journey. Now, let's talk about something that often surprises chosen ones: how being on a spiritual path can affect you physically. When we think about spirituality, we often focus on the mind and soul, but the body is very much involved too. Here's the thing. Intense spiritual experiences and practices can have very real physical effects. Some of these can be really positive. You might find that you have more energy or that you're sleeping better. You might feel more in tune with your body or notice that you're naturally drawn to healthier habits. But there can also be some challenging physical effects. Some people experience what's called Kundalini awakening symptoms, which can include things like spontaneous body movements, changes in body temperature, or unusual sensations like tingling or pressure in different parts of the body. You might also find that you become more sensitive to certain foods or to environmental factors like noise or electromagnetic fields. Some chosen ones report needing less sleep, while others might go through periods of extreme fatigue. One of the toughest things about these physical effects is that they can be really confusing and sometimes scary, especially if you don't know what's happening. You might worry that you're getting sick or that something is wrong with you. These symptoms can also be hard to explain to others, including doctors. Many of these experiences aren't well understood by mainstream medicine, which can make it challenging to get support or validation. Another challenge is learning to manage these physical effects while still going about your daily life. It's one thing to experience unusual body sensations during meditation, but it's another thing entirely to deal with them while you're trying to work or take care of your family. So how do you handle these physical aspects of the spiritual journey? First and foremost, it's important to take good care of your body. Eat well, get enough rest, and stay hydrated. Regular exercise can also be really helpful, especially gentle practices like yoga or Tai Chi that help you stay grounded in your body. It's also crucial to listen to your body. Pay attention to how different foods, activities, or environments affect you. You might need to make some changes to your lifestyle to support your body through this process. Don't hesitate to seek help if you need it. While mainstream doctors might not understand all aspects of spiritual awakening, they can still help rule out any medical issues. You might also consider working with holistic health practitioners or energy healers who are familiar with the physical effects of spiritual awakening. Remember, too, that these physical experiences are often temporary. They're usually part of a process of transformation and integration. Try to approach them with curiosity rather than fear, and trust that your body has its own wisdom in navigating this journey. Finally, let's talk about one of the biggest challenges that chosen ones face: figuring out what exactly they're chosen for. This is the quest for purpose, and it's a journey that can be both exciting and frustrating. As a chosen one, you probably have a strong sense that you're meant to do something important. You might feel a pull towards making a difference in the world, or a deep desire to understand the mysteries of life. But the tricky part is figuring out exactly what that means for you personally. This sense of purpose can be really motivating. It can give you the strength to overcome obstacles and the courage to step out of your comfort zone. But it can also be overwhelming. You might feel pressure to figure everything out right away, or worry that you're not living up to your potential. One of the toughest things about this quest for purpose is dealing with uncertainty. You might have moments of clarity where you feel like you know exactly what you're meant to do, followed by periods of doubt where you feel completely lost. You might also struggle with the fear of making the wrong choice. What if you commit to one path, only to find out later that it wasn't the right one? Or what if your purpose turns out to be different from what you expected or hoped for? Another challenge is balancing your sense of higher purpose with the practical realities of life. You might feel called to do something that doesn't seem practical or that others don't understand or support. So how do you navigate this quest for purpose? Well, one important thing to remember is that finding your purpose is usually a process, not a single moment of revelation. It's okay if you don't have it all figured out right away. Pay attention to the things that light you up, that make you feel alive and energized. These are often clues to your purpose. Also, notice the ways in which you naturally help or inspire others. Your purpose often lies at the intersection of what you love and what the world needs. Don't be afraid to experiment. Try different things. Explore various paths. Each experience, even if it's not the one, can teach you something valuable about yourself and what you're meant to do. Remember, too, that your purpose doesn't have to be grand or world-changing to be meaningful. Sometimes, living your purpose is as simple as being kind, spreading love, or bringing more beauty into the world in your own unique way. Lastly, trust the journey. Trust that you're being guided, even when the path isn't clear. Your experiences, both the good and the challenging ones, are all part of shaping you for your purpose. As we wrap up our exploration of the challenges faced by chosen ones, it's important to remember that being on this path, while difficult at times, is also an incredible gift. Yes, you may face feelings of loneliness, deal with big responsibilities, battle self-doubt, navigate skepticism from others, balance different worlds, handle intense experiences, manage changing relationships, cope with physical effects, and search for your true purpose. But each of these challenges is also an opportunity for growth, understanding, and transformation. Being a chosen one isn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about being willing to walk a path of continuous growth and discovery. It's about using your unique gifts and perspectives to make a positive difference in the world, whatever form that may take. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. There are others out there who understand what you're going through, even if you haven't met them yet. Don't be afraid to reach out, to seek support, and to share your experiences with others who can relate. Embrace your uniqueness, trust your journey, and be patient with yourself as you navigate the complexities of being a chosen one. Your path may not always be easy, but it is yours, and it is beautiful. Keep moving forward, keep growing, and keep shining your light. The world needs what only you can bring.